Today we delve into, does the anxious attachment style push people away? Picture this: a man or woman standing at the crossroads of connection and isolation, their heart beating rapidly in anticipation of both joy and rejection. In the intricate theater of love, the anxious attachment style often sets the stage for dramatic, self-fulfilling conflicts that, ironically, push the very people they so desperately crave to keep close. Imagine a quaint drawing room, dimly lit with the warm glow of a crackling fireplace. In one corner sits an individual whose eyes dart with intensity, a soul tangled in the tendrils of persistent worry. This is the anxious attachment style in all its vivid reality. From childhood, the echoes of abandonment and the relentless fear of being left have cast long shadows. These individuals, in an effort to shield themselves from a haunting loneliness, adopt a posture of hypervigilance. However, that same vigilance often morphs into a double-edged sword. Their quest for reassurance can lead to a barrage of questions and ever-changing demands for affirmation, which, rather than deepening intimacy, can inadvertently repel even the kindest partner. I recall an evening in a private club once where conversation flowed as liberally as vintage wine. A dear acquaintance, burdened by chronic stress and marked by an unmistakable anxious energy, confided his fear of abandonment. "I'm terrified," he admitted, voice trembling yet laced with determination, "that my need for closeness will ultimately drive my loved ones away." His words resonated deeply, for they encapsulated the tragic irony at the heart of anxious attachment. In the pursuit of comfort and connection, the anxious mind creates a labyrinth of expectations and compulsions that, over time, suffocates the relationship. This relentless need for control, as counterintuitive as it may seem, is a desperate attempt to manage what seems to be a perpetual storm. An anxious person clings to the certainty of a defined role, whether as a caretaker or as the indispensable partner, believing that by closely orchestrating every emotional interaction, they might stave off the specter of rejection. Yet, in doing so, they frequently cross into realms of manipulation or guilt-tripping. Picture a scene. A partner, seeking a moment of quiet serenity, is suddenly bombarded with demands for instant validation. A barrage of texts, questions about every minor detail of the day, and subtle insinuations that silence equals disinterest. In that moment, rather than feeling cherished, the other person may perceive a stifling atmosphere, one that leaves no room for personal space or genuine mutual respect. At its core, the anxious attachment style is fueled by what can be described as obsessive thinking. It is as though the brain becomes ensnared in a never-ending loop of what-ifs. What if I say the wrong thing? What if they tire of me? What if they leave? This unceasing cycle of worry, often accompanied by chronic stress, is not merely a passing inconvenience. It is a profound barrier to forming sustainable, healthy relationships. In the intimate dance of connection, every step taken by the anxious individual seems burdened by an overwhelming fear that each misstep may lead to disaster. Consider for a moment the interplay between this attachment style and the notion of boundaries. On a rational level, there is an acknowledgement of the necessity for healthy limits, recognizing that personal space and self-care are vital components of any thriving partnership. Yet, when the anxious heart is in full throttle, these boundaries are often compromised. It is not uncommon to witness a person who acknowledges the importance of separation, but then finds themselves slipping into patterns of overdependence. They oscillate between the desire for closeness and the irrational fear that any distance will result in being abandoned entirely, much like a ship caught between a rock and a hard place. Stories abound in the realm of relationships where this self-fulfilling prophecy takes center stage. I once encountered a couple whose dynamic was like a finely tuned yet tragic opera. One partner, secure and measured, endeavored to provide steady support. The other, ensnared in the grips of anxious attachment, was tormented by every perceived lapse in communication. A single day without a message was transformed into an epic narrative of impending doom. The secure partner, though loving and patient, could not continuously meet these heightened, almost fantastical expectations. The result was a slow drift, where the anxious partner's fervent pleas for constant validation inadvertently overwhelmed the relationship, causing the very disconnection they feared. Yet, it is important to recognize that this attachment style is not, in itself, a design to repel love. Rather, it is the tragic consequence of a deep-seated fear, a protective mechanism that, ironically, erects barriers when one is yearning to dissolve them. The anxious individual often enters relationships with a fervent hope that each gesture of intimacy will fill the void left by past hurts. But if that hope is met with even a hint of withdrawal, a momentary silence or a shift in tone, the resulting anxiety can become so paralyzing that it sabotages any genuine attempt at connection. The story of anxious attachment is also one of potential transformation. In my years of observation, I have witnessed moments of profound change where individuals, through introspection and the courage to seek help, begin the arduous journey of self-awareness. With therapy, mindfulness practices, and the embrace of secure relationships, many come to understand that their attachment style is not an immutable fate. They learn, sometimes the hard way, that the patterns forged in early life can be remolded by new, healthier experiences. And in that remolding, the very attributes that once pushed people away can, over time, become stepping stones toward deeper, more resilient intimacy. Imagine, if you will, a tapestry, each thread representing moments of joy, sorrow, struggle, and triumph in the pursuit of connection. The anxious attachment style is one of those threads, weaving intricate patterns that at times create knots and tangles. But with patience, self-compassion, and the wisdom to recognize that no single strand defines the whole, the tapestry of one's relational life can be transformed into a work of art that celebrates both vulnerability and strength. In conclusion, the question, "Does the anxious attachment style push people away?" invites us to look beyond superficial behaviors and into the heart of a complex emotional dynamic. It is a style marked by an incessant longing to be loved, a longing that, through its extremes, can ironically create isolation. Yet, within this struggle lies the potential for growth and change. With understanding, empathy, and the willingness to engage in genuine, unguarded dialogue, it is possible to transform the anxious impulse from a source of despair into a bridge toward lasting connection. The journey is long and fraught with challenges, but in the end, it offers the promise of a richer, more authentic experience of love. And so, as we ponder the intricate dance between fear and desire, let us remember that every heart carries its own story, a story of resilience, of striving against the tide, and ultimately, of finding a way to be both seen and cherished in a world that often seems indifferent to the quiet battles of the soul.
If you believe this video might help someone dear to you, share it with them. A small gesture on your part could mean the world to a friend in need.